is Ciro Guerra and I'm the director of Abrazo of the Serpiente. I had done two previous films which were very personal and which dealt with issues of family and culture and something that was very close to me. And I wanted to go the other way. I wanted to take a journey into the unknown and invite the viewer in that journey. The Amazon is half of Colombia. It's like a big part of the map of the territory, but it's a half of the country that is always a mystery to us. We don't know much about it. To me, that was the unknown. That was the furthest away, and it was just around the corner for us. So I started doing some research, and a friend of mine said to me, if you're interested in the story of the Colombian Amazon, you should read the journals of these explorers. And I started reading them, and they were fascinating. And it was a story that was unknown, that was untold, and that no one was going to tell it if we didn't. So it was, of course, it was a challenge. But the fact that it was a challenge, that's what turned me on to the film. I don't make films for professional reasons. I think cinema should be an experience, also to make it. And if it becomes an experience when you make it, it also becomes an experience to see it, and I like that in cinema. So I did the research, and when I went to the Amazon to see what was left of this story, there was nothing left, and the Amazon is completely different than what you see in the film. So we had to recreate it. It was a job of recreating something to create a memory of something that is lost now. I thought it was going to be impossible to find these characters. They were written as fiction, and I wasn't sure that I could find people who actually existed. So it wasn't like we made a casting call or something, or that we saw hundreds of people for the character. I just traveled, and with a crew of people, we just traveled around the region and contacted the people, and suddenly these characters will turn up. And they were the only people who could play these characters, When I remember, because seeing, I had to see all that has been shot in the Colombian Amazon. All of short films, it's very little material, short films and a couple of features or documentaries, just looking for people. And I saw a short film that was shot in Leticia about 30 years ago. There was this guy who had a very imposing presence, and he impressed me. So I said, maybe I can find him. And I went and find him, asking around about him, and when he appeared, that's the moment in which I realized that the movie was going to be able to be made. Because I've spoken to many indigenous people, and none of them had any of the characteristics that the film needed. But this guy who plays Older Caramacate, his name is Antonio Bolivar, he had such a presence, and he also had some experience in acting. A very little, he has had a small experience, but he was the character, and his life story also connected to the character, because he's one of the last Dokaina people. Only 16 people speak that language anymore. So that was, and it was like that for every one of the indigenous characters. I spoke to people, and they were completely far away from what the character needed, but suddenly someone will turn up, and they would be perfect, and they would be enthusiastic about making the film. Yeah, the film is directly inspired by the photographs of the explorers. And they were this photographic plaque, black and white, almost daguerreotype type kind of pictures. And when I saw them, they were very impressive, because it's an Amazon that it's completely different than what we think of the Amazon today. It's an Amazon that is completely devoid of exoticism, of exuberance, of all that we associate with this place. And it's an Amazon that doesn't exist anymore, that you cannot just go and see it. So it's like it's talking from another dimension, from another era, from another time, but from another place, from another world. and it creates the distance that I needed to tell the story. So from the very beginning, we were very sure that the film had to be black and white. There was no other way of doing it. Yeah, the thing is, when you are in the Amazon and when you spend time with the indigenous communities, all the time you're thinking and talking about big things, about the big issues of life, and they put a mirror on you that gives you an image that you had never seen before, because they see the world completely different than when we do, and that makes you reflect a lot, and it sheds new light on your life. So it's a very big process of reflection, and I wanted the film to reflect that, to take the viewer on this kind of journey that makes you reflect on your history, on the past, and on what our relationship has been to the Amazon. I don't think the film should be seen only as an attack on colonialism, because that's a very simplistic way of seeing it, because the film just, when we're telling the story, this is something that has to be seen, and in the film is nowhere near as brutal as it really was. It just touches the subjects in a very light way. You can go deeper into each one of these subjects and make a film about it. But what was important to me was the spiritual aspect of it, how this conflict is not only a physical, visual conflict, but also a spiritual conflict, and it's not about who is right and who's wrong, but about how this struggle is the struggle of civilization and moving forward. Because the truth is, no one has the absolute truth about anything. With them was that they don't have these issues. The indigenous communities, they just take what they need, and if they can use it, or if it's in any way helpful or illuminating, they can just incorporate it into their world. And that's something that they do very naturally. For example, I saw shamans, very traditional shamans, who have no problem accepting and believing in Jesus, because they feel like it's a knowledge that came, and he said, this man had some important learnings that changed the lives of all these people, so there must be something right about him. He has to have. So maybe we should listen to what he has to say, and they have no problem in incorporating that into their own beliefs. And it's the same if you give them a Real Madrid shirt or a machete or whatever. If they can incorporate it and use it, it's not a problem. And that doesn't. And definitely, yeah, I don't think they conquered. It's possible to ask them to go back to what they used to be. And they don't want to go back to what they used to be. The world has changed, and they are constantly accepting and embracing change, and they see life as a continuous flow of change. So it's not about going back to what they used to be. It's about what's important to them is not losing their own knowledge and what they have learned, and that's the main problem, because young people, most young people in the Amazonian communities, they don't want to carry on the traditional knowledge. They don't want to learn the languages, and they don't want to learn the songs, or they are very impressed by capitalism, and they want to live this kind of lifestyle. So the elders feel very lonely with what they know and what their lifestyle. But it's not about going back to what they used to be. It's about keeping that tradition alive and in dialogue, in a dialogue of equals with the Western knowledge. Because I think for the first time in a long time, the Westerners are realizing that our way of life is not perfect and flawless, and in many ways it's a dead end, as far as our relationship with nature, because resources are limited. And I think it's time that we look at these communities and we see people who have lived in the same place for 10,000 years, and they have not overpopulated it, they have not devastated it, and they have learned to deal with these resources without exhausting them. So it's something that I think if we manage to have a dialogue of equals, not condescending or not exoticizing them, there's something that we both can learn and grow from. Yeah, the city is a surprise. I didn't want to find out so much about the city before coming here, and so it's a surprise to find such a big Muslim population, and you know, a Ottoman city in the middle of Europe. You know, it's something that it's a big surprise and a very nice surprise to find how this multicultural history has been managed to live together for so long, and you know how there's this city has created a harmony between religions and peoples who have very big troubles otherwise in other places. And I think it's a very beautiful city. I like its people. I think it has a very relaxed atmosphere, and the festival is very important to them. I've rarely seen a place in which a film festival means so much to its people, you know. So the fact that they see it as like the best days that they have in the year, you know. So I'm happy that cinema is able to bring this kind of enthusiasm to people, and that it has a meaning beyond just entertainment or just a cultural activity like any other, you know, how it's attached so closely to the story of the people. I think it's a giant machine of dreams, you know, and it takes an army of people to make it, but when you usually put so many people together to make something, it's usually war or destruction or bringing down a forest or something. But this time you bring so much people, so much knowledge, so much different traditions and different sciences to tell a story, for storytelling. And I think that in itself is beautiful and poetic. And the idea of just sitting there and watching and going in the dark with strangers and just being told a story in a similar way to a bedtime story. It's I always like to look at people after the film finishes, because it's like they're waking up from a dream. And I think cinema is a giant machine of dreams, you know. And I think it's the only way that we have found to listen to our dreams.